Hey everybody, welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to cover one of my favorite cartridges, the 270 WSM or 270 Winchester Short Magnum. We're going to take a look at its ballistic performance. We're going to compare it against some other 270 caliber cartridges, some ideal uses for hunting, and we'll also take a little look at the history on the Short Magnum line of cartridges that are available. So if that interests you, stick around and we'll get right to it. Alright, so to create the 270 WSM, they quite simply just took the 300 WSM and necked it down to accept the 277 caliber bullet or the 6.8 millimeter bullet, which is the same as your standard 270 Winchester. Factory offered ammunition for the 270 short mag ranges from 130 grain to 160 grain, and the most common being 130 to 150 grain. Those 130 grain bullets come out of the barrel of a 24-inch barrel exceeding 3,200 feet per second out of factory ammunition. So what we get is a shorter, fatter case. You're able to use out of the short action platform, more case velocity or case volume to increase the velocity of the projectile leaving the barrel. Therefore creating more downrange energy and a flatter trajectory than the standard 270 Winchester. So not a bad little cartridge. Alright, so a quick little history or origin on the 270 short mag. It was introduced in 2002 by Winchester as part of their short magnum line. The idea behind the 270 short mag was to create a cartridge that would offer magnum level performance in a short action rifle. Something that would combine the power of a full-size Magnum, but with the benefits of a compact, more manageable rifle platform. In the late 90s, engineers at Winchester started looking for a fatter case without the belt to create the new short Magnum cartridge line. They took the 404 Jeffries case, shortened it down from its original 2.875 inches to 2.1 inches, which is just a little bit longer than the 308. They also put a 35-degree angle shoulder on it, and dubbed it the 300 WSM. Made the 300 WSM, which is the parent case of the 270 WSM, made its first appearance at the 2001 SHOT Show, where it generated a fair amount of interest. Winchester immediately began developing other WSM cartridges, beginning with the 270 and also the 7mm WSM, which were both introduced in 2002. And not long after that came the 325 WSM, the much less popular one. So the WSM shoots that same 130 grain bullet out of the end of the barrel roughly 200 feet per second faster than the factory 270 Winchester. So what I wanted to do was do a side-by-side comparison between the 270 short mag, the 270 Winchester, and the more recent 6.8 Western, and kind of see where they line up in comparisons to each other.
Alright, so here's the little chart I put together comparing the short mag, the 270, and the 6.8 Western. I tried finding factory offered ammunition in the same exact grain weight bullet. Not always the exact same bullet construction, but the grain is there, the grain weight's the same. What I did was I took their muzzle velocity, the posted muzzle velocity, stretch that out from 100, 200, 300, and 500 yards, seeing what their energy is. We looked at drop, and we looked at energy downrange, or the max range for whitetail deer or deer-sized game, and for elk, and what the felt recoil is, and an approximate 8-pound rifle. So for the first comparison, in the 130 grain, the Winchester short mag shoots 225 feet per second faster than the factory 270 Winchester. As I stated earlier, it has more case capacity or case volume compared to the 270 Winchester, holding more powder, being able to launch those freedom seeds a lot faster out of the muzzle. 6.8 Western unfortunately does not have that offering. The 6.8 Western is set up for heavier for caliber bullets, so it has a faster twist in its barrel, faster twist rate in the barrel to be able to stabilize those longer, heavier bullets. So the 270 and the 270 short mag are your 130, 150, 160. Once you get beyond 160, you're looking at the 6.8 Western, and that's because the factory offering barrel twists in most 270s are going to be 1 in 9.5, 1 in 10, somewhere in that range. Not quite fast enough to stabilize those heavy 170, 165, 170 plus grain bullets. Can it be done? Yes, I've seen the 270 short mag shoot 170 grains. You just don't get the full advantage, or the full advantage of the larger BC bullets, just because they're not as stable. They're marginally stable, and you can use a ballistic calculator tool. Berger has a great one to see what, if you're going to hand load these, what bullets are stable or not stable in your application. But anyways, enough on the 6.8 Western and heavy bullets. Let's dive right in. So the 130 grain, you can see that the short mag shoots 225 feet per second faster than the standard 270. It's just going to outperform it in all aspects, going down out to 300 and 500 yards, shooting or carrying more energy downrange, and also with the drop, it's going to be flatter shooting. And the farther out you go, the better the short mag performs, solely based on muzzle velocity. So we're looking at max range for deer, which is carrying 1,000 foot-pounds of energy downrange, and where that ends. And for the 270 short mag, it's going to be 700 yards, still carrying 1,000 foot-pounds of energy out to 700 yards, and 1,500 foot-pounds of energy out to 470 yards. Now, I'm not advocating any hunting practices shooting out that far. I personally would not shoot over 300 yards. It takes a unique situation to be able to get steady, have great wind calls, spotters usually, to shoot at game at that far away, and I personally don't feel that that's ethical. I want to put as much energy into that animal, and that generally means shooting them closer ranges. So just a little disclaimer there. I'm not saying you should. I'm just saying that's what the effective range would be on whitetail and elk. So I also wanted to look at the recoil, because Magnum, people think, Win Mag, heavy recoiling, hard kicking, when in reality with the short mag, it is not much different than the 270. Again, shooting the same grain weight bullets, about 2.5 pounds more felt recoil. And you can mitigate felt recoil pads, or muzzle devices. These don't have muzzle devices. Alright, let's take a look at the 150 grain bullets in the 270 short mag and the 270 Winchester, and no offerings in the 6.8 Western. So I found two factory ammo offerings, different brand, but they still both still use the ABLR bullet with a very high BC, and you'll see where that comes into play later here. Same story as the 130 grains, where the 270 short mag is shooting this 150 grain projectile faster out of the muzzle, 125 feet per second faster than the 270 Winchester. Therefore, it's going to outperform it in downrange energy and elevation drop as well. So nothing new there. I'll just pause a second. You can take a screenshot and look at those numbers. So next we're going to look at the max range for deer, which would be carrying 1,000 foot-pounds of energy downrange. And this is where the high BC bullets are really going to shine. So those sleeker, longer bullets are carrying more energy farther than the less efficient 130 grain bullets. So we gained 210 yards. Even though the muzzle velocity was less out of the 270 short mag, we're still carrying 1,000 foot-pounds of energy out to 910 yards. Compared to the 270 Winchester, which is still very impressive, carrying 1,000 foot-pounds of energy out 840 yards. On an elk size game, we're looking at 600 and 530 yards for the Winchester. Still very, very good, and that's all attributed to that more efficient bullet. Alright, now let's take a look at the 160 grain offerings and factory ammo. The only two I could find were made by Double Tap ammo for the 270 short mag and the 270 Winchester. And as you can see, they have a very low BC, and that's due to the bullet construction. The nozzler partition is more of a rounded nose, doesn't have that long, sleek ogive and a point tip like the Copper Impact does that we're shooting out of the 6.8 Western. So that will play a role in long range, and you'll see that in the chart as we move on. But let's dive in here. The 270 short mag, we're still pushing that 160 grain bullet out of the barrel at 3,025 feet per second compared to the 2850 and 2875 out of the other two. Carrying that energy out to 300 yards, that's where the higher BC bullet from the 6.8 Western is going to start taking over. As you can see, we're 30 foot-pounds of energy higher out of the 6.8 Western. And as you move out farther, it just continues to beat the 270 short mag. Again, it's that higher ballistic coefficient bullet, that longer, sleeker bullet carrying more energy downrange farther. And as we move to elevation drop, again, this is where horsepower is going to take over. The 270 short mag is flatter shooting at 200, 300, and still out to 500 yards than the 6.8 Western with that higher BC bullet. But where BC also takes over again, like I was mentioned before, carrying that energy downrange, we're going to see 1,000 foot-pounds of energy or more out to 840 yards with the 6.8 Western compared to 700 yards with the short mag. Same goes for the elk size game, carrying 1,500 foot-pounds of energy out to 540 yards compared to 480 yards. So it's only 60 yards difference, but it is definitely noticeable. Another interesting thing was the recoil. They're almost identical, about just shy of 26 pounds compared to 27 pounds out of the short mag and the Western, and then obviously less out of the 270 Winchester. Just doesn't have that much powder, doesn't have as much powder as the other two cartridges do. So
after taking a look at the ballistic data, what do you guys think? Is it a winner? Is it a lead balloon? Personally, I think it is a winner. I believe there was a lawsuit with the short mag because somebody had actually patented the Wildcat version of this, and basically they just stopped making rifles chambered in it, which is too bad because this one, in my opinion, is a real winner, especially in the 270 calibers, or in the 277 bullet caliber. Personally, I love the 277 or 6.8 millimeter diameter, just because I think the 6.5 is a little too small for elk, and the 7 millimeters have been around forever, and there's tons of offerings and they're great. I have always owned 270s. It was my first deer rifle. I fell in love with it, mainly because I proved that I could knock down deer with it when my whole family was shooting a 30-06 or a 308, that 30 caliber. So I wanted to take this out in the western states and be able to shoot antelope, and of course elk if I could find heavier caliber or heavier bullets, which they offer them. So the 270 Winchester was my go-to, and once this was introduced, I just had to have one and play around with it, and it shoots amazingly well. And being a hand loader now, I can play around with different bullet weights and really get a lot of performance out of this. So well, that's gonna do it for this one, guys. Thanks for sticking around and checking out my review on the 270 short mag, and we'll take a look at some other cartridges that I have rifles for in my gun vault. So stay tuned, and we'll catch you guys later.